So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to another episode of Is It That Bad? Where we take a look at an album that maybe had some mixed reviews, but in this case, it's a brand new album that came out this last Friday, and it's from the band All That Remains, and it's this the album, Anti-Fragile, which in my opinion, it's a terrible album name. So I'm joined on this episode. I have Justin from Workers. Justin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, and I'm good. Not only Workers, CC Squared, where they have the Heavy Metal Business podcast, where they give you information so you as a band don't screw up. So
That's what we try.
you try, and we have all the way in the UK, Tom the Green Man, the man that knows horror, and obviously who's who his only criteria to interview people in his channel is that you have to be hot. Because like every time he's got some, I'm telling you, I've interviewed some people. I'm not saying you're all ugly, but but Tom has he's interviewed some of the most beautiful women from bands, and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it wrong, man. So Tom, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks, Hector. Comes with the territory of symphonic metal, right? Always,
Yes, yes. Symphonic metal, gorgeous people. Me, death metal, interviewing stuff, like not so much. And we have obviously JC Rock and Metal Reviews. How are you, JC?
I'm doing good, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. And finally, returning for the channel. The last time he was on the channel was when we did it. Is it that bad for Suicide Silence? And that was way back in November of 2023. So, Josh, welcome back. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thank you. And thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, and glad to have you here. So, yes, this is the album we're talking about. All That Remains, Anti-Fragile. So everyone knows the drill. We have the free rounds. And a backdrop on this album, this is their first album, I think, in 6 years. And obviously their first album without uh, their last guitar player who sadly, passed away. And they got no, wait, Jason Richardson, uh, formerly of Born of Osiris and other bands. And Josh Wilbur is producing this last album again. So yeah, they put out a few singles before, and yeah, a lot of people were actually expecting this record. So we have the first round, we're gonna give our first impressions. The second round, where we pick three songs that we think maybe are the weakest, and the last and final round, where we give our final thoughts on the album, and we give it a rating: a thumbs up, thumbs sideways, or thumbs down. So let's start. Let's start with Justin, then Tom, JC, Josh, and finally me. So, Justin, your first impressions of Anti-Fragile by All That Remains.
All right. So I've been an All That Remains fan for a while. I really liked some of the earlier albums, but I didn't care for these singles as they were coming out. Divine kind of grew on me over time. And I don't know if it's because it got better with time or it's kind of contrasting with the other ones, which is better than the other ones. But the first listen through this album was a little rough. Like there's too many soft, predictable boy band-esque choruses, which they've kind of become known to. More noticeably, there was a lot of pitchy guitar harmonic noises in the middle of riffs. It was distracting from riffs that might have been good otherwise, without so much hand noise and kind of unnecessary embellishment. Production as a whole, just felt like there was a ton of production. Like everything had layers on top of layers on top of layers. Like whoever produced this album used every plugin he had available and downloaded 100 more and used those too. Kind of cringy lyrics, but that's become sort of par for the course with this band over time. And then there was like a little glimmer of hope. Title track was kind of solid, but again, back to the lyrics, like propaganda is a path, let there be wrath. It's like, I don't know. I think Phil let Tim Pool write some of this shit, but I don't know. First listen, we'll get into it.
Okay. What about you, Tom?
So I didn't really know All That Remains very well, despite having heard of them. way back probably. I might have picked out a couple of singles back in the 2000s, listened to those, but since then haven't really kind of gotten into the band much. If I was ever going to get into them, I feel like it would have been the time I was listening to lots of kind of Kill Switch and Architects and all that kind of thing, in the sort of mid to late 2000s era. So in a way, I wonder if that plays to my advantage for this album a little bit, going in almost completely fresh. I'm not sure. But first impression was that it was, yeah, just like it was going back in time a bit for me. It just has that sound that reminds me a lot of that era of melodic metalcore bands and that kind of style. Um, but yeah, there's sort of the vocals I found personally a bit distracting at times. Like I guess kind of like Justin said, they kind of I was gonna, when we get to the songs, point out a specific chorus that reminds me of a specific boy band, but I'll save that for the next round. um, so, but I'll leave that for the next round. I think my initial thoughts are just, yeah, it's just kind of like seeing an old friend, but not necessarily an old friend you want to see often.
That's a good, seeing an old friend you don't want to see. That's a good one, Tom. What about you, JC?
Okay, I'm pretty new to the band. I've never really listened to them in the past. I know that they started around like the time of Killswitch Engage, and they were one of those like heavier metalcore bands. And then their later albums, they went into more of like this butt rock or Five Finger Death Punch type of sound. So I think that's what a lot of people were saying about them. I listened to the first, I think it was four singles before this album came out, and I thought they were okay, but I think I found them to be more commercial, more of that, almost like a post grunge, like lots of like catchy choruses, more commercial sounding, very produced. So I'll be talking about that in the next round. But then on this album, there's some other stuff that kind of sounds a little more like their classic stuff. So I think there's a lot of different stuff on this album, which I will get to in the next rounds and the last round. So that's all. I think it's kind of like there's some surprises on here, and then like the singles don't really represent like the entire album very well. But again, that's all I'll say for now. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Josh?
Same for me as well. They're a band that I've known about for quite a long time, but I've never really had the itch to go and check them out. But around this album, the first time I listened to it was the day it come out for this video. And that was the first time I actually ever heard the band. So I kind of had no real expectations on it. I've heard bits and pieces here and there. Some people saying that the singles were pretty good and better than their previous albums. But yeah, I basically went into it with no expectations, and I was quite pleasantly surprised. I thought it was actually a pretty good album, to be honest. And yeah, that's probably all I'll say on it currently.
Okay. So I did listen to All That Remains for years. So I did know the band. I love The Fall of Ideals. I think that's a kick-ass record, way up there with some other metalcore classics. But the first run through this, I think Jason Richardson is a great addition as a guitar player. He's a very good guitar player. Phil Labonte, to me, has always been like second tier, like metalcore. Like I don't know. I prefer Howard Jones, Jesse Leach, some other metalcore vocalists that I think are better. And also, I think Phil Labonte is kind of like he writes sort of like very like butt rocky type of like lyrics. So the lyrics aren't the strong thing, but I remember something that the albums that I love from them, I thought they were great, but they, in the 2010s, they started getting different. So my first impression of this, I first listened to the singles. I thought the singles were like hit or miss. I was like, there's something in them, but yeah, again, the vocals put me off, and there were songs that I was listening to that I thought of that meme of Mr. Beam, like sitting and copying, and like he's sitting next to Killswitch Engage. He's like, Killswitch, what are you writing, Killswitch Engage? Oh, you write about this, and then he's like copying. Okay, this is popular. So I don't know. I felt like that the some parts of the album were trying too hard, maybe to sound like maybe nostalgic in a way. But I think they're mixing some of their. I agree with what JC said that they're mixing some of their old earlier harder stuff with more of their like butt rock. I miss my military husband type of lyrics. So those are my initial thoughts. So let's go to round two, where we pick three songs that we think are less good. So, Justin, which songs did you think were the less good here?
All right. I think easily the worst track on the album, I'll be amazed if it's not on everybody's list, was Kerosene. Like a handful of songs on the album started promising, some cool riffing, and then just kind of steered right off a cliff. Chorus sounds like some kind of like K-pop or C-tier boy band inspired chorus, kind of made me think of like O-Town or something, as weird as that is. But like, I don't know, weird butt rock kids song, or I don't know. And then it has this like Nintendo power sound and guitar solo. I don't know. The song just felt very disjointed. The chorus was just really, really cheesy. To me, that stood out as one that if like I was releasing this album, I would have just cut that thing and it would have never made the album. Um, the Piper was my next one. So starts with the obligatory polyrhythmic copy of the Architect's Doomsday riff. Everybody's got to have one. I think every metalcore band's required to rip that rip off at least like once per album. Wage War, Low comes to mind. But it's just like one metalcore trope after another. More heartache, betrayal lyrics, which seems to be kind of Phil's MO recently. Um, and you kind of talked about Phil's lyrics briefly. I think that one of the things Phil's suffering from is these lyrics are cheesy, but they're cheesy for the sake of rhyming. I think he just like forces things to fit into a rhyming box, and if he would just ditch some of the rhymey stuff and just focus more on the content, I think maybe he'd have slightly better lyrics. Because this song was just rhyme after rhyme after rhyme, and it felt so forced and so contrived. But yeah, I think so much modern metal just annoys me. It's like heavy songs that are somehow they're heavy, but they're also softer than a baby's ass. And I think that's what we ran into here. This is like seriously, it's just pop music for dudes who mod their Subarus. Like I don't even know what this is anymore. But last pick, uh, I lumped Forever Cold and Poison It together. I'll explain why I did this. I was on Spotify and I went back to try to remember which song it was that I wanted to add to my list. And I was just hitting the slider and jumping to like the singy part of the song. I did this. They're in the exact same key, same tempo, same like overproduced layer stack of shit behind the vocals. You seriously can't tell those songs apart, and they're right next to each other on the album. So I was like, fuck it, we're just gonna call them one song. At that point, I lost any will to listen to them both from the start again. So they're both getting the hammer here. So Forever Cold and Poison It sounds like the same song. There it is.
Yeah. Interesting picks. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, Kerosene was one of mine as well, and that was one of the ones that was what I was referring to in the first round as being the one with the boy band chorus. Specifically, I think Busted, like it sounds exactly what Busted would have released. For those of you that have heard of Busted, in the kind of
Never heard.
2000s, it just reminded me a lot of one of their sort of styles of choruses, essentially. And yeah, it just kind of I don't know, it sounded very pretty cheesy and I mean, there are probably cheesier songs I've heard, but yeah, I didn't really enjoy that one too much. I've also got Cut Their Tongues Out as one of mine, which might be a little bit more surprising. It's a bit more of a go hard kind of track, this one, which I thought started off really quite well, but I kind of got bored very quickly with it. I just didn't feel developed too much into anything that sort of sparked my interest or had any of the hooks. There are a couple of tracks on this album which did have cheesy vocals that I didn't mind so much. So I'll I'll probably circle back to that in the next round when we're sort of coming to our decision. But yeah, I didn't like No Tomorrow either, for similar sorts of reasons to Kerosene, although I found that one slightly less cheesy than Kerosene, so almost a slightly more enjoyable level of cheese, but still a little bit too cheesy overall.
Okay, good picks. What about you, JC?
And the first one I pick is No Tomorrow. I I'm gonna be picking, I think, like some of the singles, but I think like the singles were probably like the weakest one, but it was just commercial sounding, just the melodic chorus, and it just really sounds like it didn't really fit with the rest of the album. But that's what I have to say about that. Also, Forever Cold, another one. It's melodic. There are some heavy parts, some melodic parts, and the clean vocals in the chorus are okay, but it's just one of those songs that it just didn't really do much for me. So I picked that one. And this last one, like nobody mentioned this, but it's called Let You Go. I can't like not think of the band Disturbed. Like it sounded like David Draymond, and I can't like listen to the song and like not think of Disturbed or David Draymond. So that's why I'm picking that song. It just sounded just like they were going for that exact like new metal sound. Like, but otherwise it just wasn't like that bad as far as like some of the guitar parts sounded okay. It just very similar to that. That's why I picked that. And as for the other songs, I'll talk about them later. So those are my three. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Josh?
Um, yeah, I kind of went with similar picks to everybody. And what I would say is for the most part on this album, I think the weakest part of the album is definitely the choruses. Um, and I picked No Tomorrow for sort of similar kind of reasons as JC. I just felt that song was just a little bit weaker. Kind of starts off a little bit slower and just kind of you know, does just a generic kind of metalcore thing. Also went with the Piper as well. I think for a kind of similar sort of thing, just metalcore by the numbers. Just but I think the guitar solo is a really great guitar solo in that song. And I went with Forever Cold as well, because yeah, that one just didn't stand out to me as much as some of the other songs that I think are actually pretty good. But for me, those three were probably my weakest songs on the album.
Okay, a solid pick. So for me, I pick also Kerosene. And the funny thing is that Kerosene is supposed to be very deep lyrically. Apparently, it's about things that happen in Gaza and Palestine. And I'm like, I'm not, I'm not, yeah, I'm like, Phil, you have to elaborate on those lyrics. I'm like, sing, fire. Oh, it's about this. Like, how do you make that connection? I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm like, uh, it sounded like a boy band doing Fuel from Metallica, but they changed it to Kerosene. And I have nothing against boy bands. Uh, I was watching Deadpool and Wolverine the other day, and I was dancing to Bye Bye Bye. So hey, I like me some good boy band tracks, but yeah, the way that he sings on that track, I don't know, it's too overly produced and glossy. Tom, I haven't heard of that boy band that you mentioned, but I think Justin, did you compare it to O Town?
I don't know. It was the first boy band that came to mind that was in like that C tier list. I didn't want to give them credit and say Backstreet Boys because like it wouldn't have been as good as a Backstreet Boys song. I don't
No,
know.
no, Backstreet Boys or NSYNC are too good.
Yeah.
But I remember O Town. So when he said, I was like, oh my God, O Town, give me nothing, all or nothing at all. But yeah, so yeah, I thought that song was very weak. I also picked the Piper. First of all, that is a crappy name for a song. And I don't know why, I just thought of that Megadeth lyric, like just like the Pied Piper. Like, like he was listening to this. I'm like, I'm gonna take the Piper and put it into a song. I'm like, I thought of Symphony of Destruction by Megadeth, only not good. And yeah, it's just too by the numbers, predictable song. I agree with Josh. There's a cool guitar part, but that doesn't save it from being a half-ass, like generic song by the numbers. So I picked that one. And the other one I picked was Forever Cold because I'm sorry, but Breaking Benjamin called and they won their fucking song back. There's even a they have a song called So Cold. I'm like, this sounds like a
Hmm.
Breaking Benjamin song. And I know Breaking Benjamin get a lot of shit, but I actually like them. There's not every stuff, but yeah, I thought it was like a Breaking Benjamin song. And I agree with what Justin said about the other song, Poison It Out. I'm like, uh, that would have been like, I would have put that as well there. And No Tomorrow, yeah, it's kind of weak, but those are the other three that I picked. So, yeah, there we have it. Everyone has picked some songs. Now we're going to the third and final round where we give our final thoughts and ratings. So, Justin?
All right. This was a hard one for me to reconcile because there are a lot of really cool parts on this album. Musicianship, talent, like off the charts, undeniable. But with great power comes great responsibility. Like Jason Richardson, monster guitarist. Phil, I think, is an incredibly talented vocalist, despite, some of the criticisms of this album. There are a lot of really heavy, sick riffs, cool vocal patterns. I can see that there was a lot of work put into this album. And unfortunately, like the really, really good parts are nestled between a lot of parts that I wish just didn't exist. So I guess I'm accepting that I'm probably not the target demographic for this band anymore. Like going back to like the deepest gray and some of the earlier stuff where it felt a lot more metal and a lot less pop. And I think unfortunately that's been sort of the trajectory of this genre for a while. It's like a race to the bottom at this point. But it's funny you said, the military thing, because in my notes I had peak military wife metal, and that's what this feels like. Like rhinestone on the back pocket of the jeans, like yeah, the whole deal. It's this album. It's like as safe as Tim Pool's milk toast political fence sitting. It's as niche as the Joe Rogan podcast. It's as exciting as a straight piped Honda Civic. But a lot of people enjoy that shit. So who am I to judge? It's not bad. It's just not as good as I hoped it would be, especially being kind of a longtime fan of the band. I can't send this one to the trash can. I can't save it. I'm just going thumb sideways.
Okay, nice. So we have our first both Pub Sideways. So what about you, Tom?
Yeah, so I think what I said earlier about being new to this band might play to some sort of advantage, not going in with kind of the knowledge of their past albums and how this compares to those and that kind of thing. And there was enough here that I quite liked. I think, as has been mentioned, lots of the instrumental guitar parts are pretty cool. I like some of the atmospheric build-ups as well in some of the tracks. They're kind of cool. And actually, I have to admit at this point that I may never let this down, but I enjoyed the Piper. I don't know what it
Go
was,
with it,
something in
man.
that chorus. I was like, actually, it's kind of, yeah, I can listen to that one again and I kind of dig it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is because you could level pretty much the same criticism I had about the other two tracks, No Tomorrow and Kerosene, almost to that track. Yet with the Piper, something different is happening with my brain in that song that makes me enjoy it, but I can't say what it is. So anyway, um, otherwise, yeah, I think there were parts of this I actually quite liked. Was it Poison It? The sort of the guitar riff in that, particularly at the start, the kind of like tremolo thing going on. I thought that's pretty cool. Um, yeah, so there's sort of these guitar parts in this that I enjoy. I struggled to get on board with the vocals, I think, quite a bit throughout the album. Apart from maybe the Piper. So yeah, I mean, I think overall there's enough here for me to perhaps surprisingly, given what I said earlier with my analogy of it being a bit like an old friend that you don't want to see super often, that doesn't mean that I still don't now and then maybe want to stay in touch with that friend. But so I'm going to give it a thumbs up.
Okay. So we have a thumb sideways and a thumbs up. What about you, JC?
Yeah, I guess I'll probably have say something similar. I think there's a lot of stuff here I actually thought was really good. The opening track, Divine, and this album starts off really good and really heavy. I think it's just I really like the drumming on this album. I thought that was really good, and I think the production. I know it's very heavily produced, but I think you can hear the instruments very well. So I think like the songs I picked, like I didn't really hate them that much. And then there are some songs I think are very good ones, like the title track "Anti-Fragile." I thought that was really good. And then like the last one, "Blood and Stone," has like a softer piano in that one, a little more melodic, but that one was pretty cool. And the other ones, like I didn't really like hate them, but I think they're decent. So I think I'm gonna also save it. I think I'm gonna give it a thumbs up as well. I think there's
Okay.
a lot of good stuff here, even though there's some stuff that's a little weaker.
Okay, so we have one thumb sideways, two thumbs up. What about you, Josh?
Well, I also I thought this album was really good. I can't lie. Going into it, I had my sort of reservations, with not great expectations for it. But straight out the box, when Divine starts, I'm like, this sounds really good. And definitely on the second listen, I think it improved a lot for me. Yeah, I really like that. Um, as much as everyone said about Kerosene, they didn't like it. I actually thought it was all right, that song, to be honest. Um,
Yeah.
the title track, I think, is probably that and Divine are probably the two best songs on the album. Um, Also, I quite liked Poison It and Cut Your Tongue Out. I thought them two songs were really good as well. The guitar playing definitely takes it up a level for me. I think Jason Richardson, I'm not sure if this album would have been as enjoyable if he wasn't on it. Um, yeah, the vocals you can kind of take or leave. Um, it's probably the weakest part of the album. The clean vocals and the choruses, as I said before. But yeah, for me, the first time listening to this band, I can definitely get the what Justin said about the modern metalcore kind of being a bit generic and sort of like trash can metal, and I get that because a lot of modern metalcore is not great, but honestly, a lot of this album sort of reminded me of like a little bit of August Burns Red and the new As I Lay Dying as well, which I do quite like. So for that reason, I also giving it a thumbs up.
Nice. Good analogies, Josh. So yeah, three thumbs up, one thumb sideways. So I thought this album, first of all, the best thing, if Jason Richardson wasn't on this album, this would have been a worse album. I think Jason Richardson's guitar playing is the best part of this album. The worst part, I agree, are the choruses. And Phil Labonte is, I don't think he's an atrocious singer, but I prefer Howard Jones, Jesse Leach, other metalcore singers. But I have listened to their old albums, and yeah, if you like this one, Josh, listen to the Fall of Ideals. That's gonna knock your socks off because that one is great and heavier, and not that poppier stuff. But I didn't hate this album as well. I thought Divine was a great. At first, I was like, but it kind of grew on me, especially like the way that he sings the Divine. I don't know, it like stayed in my head, and it was a good album starter. There were some parts in the album that kind of blended into together with me and bored me, but I think actually there's more good than bad on this album. But I'm not gonna give it a thumbs up because I don't think it's great. Great, I just think it's okay. So I'm giving it a thumb sideways. But you have it. We have actually saved this album. So all that remains, Anti-Fragile. It's not that bad. It's an okay record. I'm not. It's not going to be in my top five albums of the year anytime soon. But I also don't think it's gonna be in my top 10 bad albums of the year either. So yeah, and yeah, Jason Richardson. So great job on this album. So we want to know from you, Couchers, what do you think of all that remains? and this album Antifragile. Yeah, it's better. I think it's their better album in a long years because 2017's Madness, total crap. But this one is, it's actually not that bad. So comment down below what do you think of this track. Comment what tracks do you think are the weakest. And if you like the videos, subscribe to me and everything. And I want to thank my panel, Justin. He plays in the band Workers, and he also is in a podcast, the Heavy Metal Business Podcast, and it's a great podcast. I would know. I got interviewed on that podcast. So if you haven't watched that interview, watch it now. Watch my interview now. So Justin, what have you coming up next on the Heavy Metal Business Podcast?
All right, so not to correct you, it's just the heavy business. I know
The Heavy Business.
yeah. Heavy business podcast. Just so people can find it and watch your interview.
Yeah.
But yeah, constantly posting stuff. We've had some cool guests recently. But yeah, we just go in and talk about music industry stuff. I'm in a band that's currently signed to Metal Blade, and I've been doing this for 20 years, so I've got a little bit of inside information, and we try to help your band screw up a little less if you're into that sort of thing. Workhurst is currently in the studio. We're working on a new album. I'm hoping to have the first single out by like April. So yeah, keep an eye open. We got some cool stuff coming. Maybe it'll make it on this show. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be terrible. I hope it's not, but thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, and obviously we have Tom the Green Man. He does album reviews. We already tell that he interviews the best looking people on Symphonic Sundays, and also horror stuff. So, Tom, what have you coming up next on your channel?
Well, I suppose the next big thing, I don't know when this is going up, so I'm going to say it's tomorrow when we're recording this, but is ranking of all the Nightwish, Epica, and Within Temptation albums in one list of 26 albums. So
Oh, wow.
just finishing off like editing and doing that and putting that up for tomorrow, which will be the 3rd of February as we speak. Otherwise, it's pretty open-ended on the channel at the moment. I think after I've done that video, I'll probably be just putting up videos as and when, because I've got my move pretty soon, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So subscribe to him. JC Rock and Metal reviews. He does album reviews, rankings, and he's got a great new series where he's listening to bands from different countries and talking about them, and people post, and he'll do like a follow-up. I know you were doing Spain, which I gave you a band for Spain.
Yeah.
What country are you doing next?
This is Spain. So the next ones I'm thinking of are France, but focusing on like the early 80s scene because they kind of had like this specific scene. And I had some requests for Canada. So I'll be doing Canada, which is pretty wide. So I might focus more on Canadian thrash. I'm trying to like change it up a little. I might be like niching down a little bit on some of my different countries. So that's what I have. Other than that, new metal releases. I posted a video like about an hour before we were recording this. I have classic album reviews, Rob Zombie, Extreme, Primus. Those are all pre-recorded and they're going to be coming out next week. So I keep busy. I try to like release a good, around 5 videos a week. So I try to keep the videos coming here.
Yeah, and you should rename that series of JC Does and then put the country. No, I'm kidding. JC Does Canada. But yeah, no, it's a great series. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's what's coming up for JC. And Josh is a guitar player. He puts out music, and he also has a YouTube channel. So Josh, what have you coming up first of all with your music and the channel?
Well, firstly, my music. I'm hoping to get a band together, and we're looking to play like some old school rock and heavy metal with a bit of a modern twist. That's a project that I'm looking at doing for this year, and also for my solo stuff. In the summer, we're looking at recording my second solo project. Hoping to get that all done and released for next year. yeah, it's just more of the same. And then for my channel, I've currently got a competition for 400 subscribers, and I'm sure that'll probably be out by the time this video comes out. Also, I've got videos coming out. When we're recording this last night, I went to see Trivium and Bullet for My Valentine in London, so I'll be doing a gig review for that, with clips and all sorts of stuff. And also, I'm got plenty of some guitar covers, other videos talking about rock and metal music, and yeah, all that fun stuff.
Nice. So yeah, subscribe to his channel, get him to 400. So I have no music coming out because I have zero music talent. So, but it was I had a band with some friends of mine, but the songs were terrible. I would Is It That Bad myself. But no, coming up on the channel, I got some interviews. I got some album reviews. Like already got the promo for the new Lacona Coil. So I'll probably release that before it comes out. Sadly, no interview with Cristina Scavia. I was too late on that. That would have been awesome. But other stuff that I'm coming out this, next for Is It That Bad? We're talking about. Tom suggested that we talk about an Architects album since they're putting out an album in 2021. I mean 2021. Oh my God, in March, I think
What
it's
year is
coming
it?
out, right? In 22. And people will be like, didn't that come out already? So they're putting out an album in March. So we're talking about the Here and the Now, which came out in 2012. That's going to be the next episode. And after that, I don't know. We're gonna talk about the Steven Seagal album because that's going to be a treat. So that's coming up next. So if you like the videos, subscribe, help me out in the channel. So until next time, couchers, this Hector, the shield dude on a couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.